Namaste, everyone. A very warm welcome to the next episode of our podcast series on women and Hinduism. We have with us a very special guest today, Sinu Joseph. Her books on menstruation have made waves. We all know that. And today we're going to talk about her latest book, Varna Vidya. Welcome, Sinuji. Very happy to have you. Namaste. I want to introduce Sinuji by reading her bio. Sinu Joseph is the author of Women and Sabarimala and Rtu Vidya, which describe the science behind the traditional rules and restrictions for Hindu women. She holds a BE in electronics and instrumentation engineering and chose to work in the social and developmental space. She's done extensive action research in menstrual and reproductive health since 2009 through various NGOs and traveled across Bharat, interacting with thousands of adolescent girls and women directly to get a first-hand experience of menstrual practices and their impact on women's health. She has written extensively on unearthing the science behind native practices and bringing forth a unique narrative, which is the Bharatiya perspective on menstruation through her book, Rtu Vidya. Sinu has studied several Hindu temples' religious restrictions owing to menstruation and their impact on women's menstrual health. Her books unravel the advanced scientific knowledge lying hidden in the cultural and religious practices of Sanatana Dharma. Welcome again, Sinuji. Very happy to have you here. I think I'm lucky I got you very early on. This book is just released, right? And yeah, and there is only one talk online, or the one that you gave in Mythic Societies. And so I'm very happy I grabbed you. I love this book. Um, I also loved your earlier book on menstruation. I've only read the Women in Sabarimala, not the Rtu Vidya. I'll have to catch up with that sometime soon. So and I've seen that now you have 2 volumes on Streedharma, so that will be amazing. It will be amazing to have you over again to discuss that book. But today we just stick to Varna Vidya. What I liked about this book is that you dedicate a section for the methodology. It's very crisp but very useful, very concise, but it's all there. And the flow is amazing. It's very logical, the way it proceeds. So the moment a question arises in the mind, it's answered quite quickly. And it's footnoted, it's replete with references, and I love that because the earlier book was very anecdotal. In comparison, this one's quite well researched. And I love the Mahapariva connection. I myself have a connection with him. And so the precision and the academic style of writing is what I absolutely loved about this book, and I'm sure others will love it too. I just want to start off by asking some very basic questions so that you will introduce the book to us in your own words. Why this book, and what's the need for a deeper understanding of Varna?
Namaste again, and thank you, Sushumna ji, for the warm welcome. The book was actually released in December last year, but I held back the promotions and conversations on it because the work on Streedharma Paddhati was ongoing. In fact, this book was written because without this, we cannot understand Streedharma. Uh, at every point in Streedharma, the rules for women are are based, or their foundation lies on Varna Dharma. So it became impossible to understand what the Shastras are saying for women without understanding Varna Dharma. Now, as I'm sure you are aware, There are excellent Indic scholars who have done tremendous work to move the narrative from the colonial caste based understanding towards jati, guna, and karma. And we have to be grateful to them. Because of their work, we don't need to start there. So we will assume that those listening to this are also aware that this is not caste, this is not the British imposed idea of caste, and that there is a much deeper understanding. So, Varna as guna and as karma is given in the Bhagavad Gita. So, Bhagavan Shri Krishna himself says if a person is of the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra Varna, these are the gunas and karmas. So, that is a correct understanding. But it is not enough to explain the difference in the rules for women and the Shudra Varna. So whether if it is for one's own personal sadhana, for example, women are not to chant the Gayatri mantra, or they are not to be the performers of Agni Karyas or officiate as priests in temples where only men of the who have been initiated via the Upanayana should do it. So there are so many rules, and they are all similar for women and the Shudra Varna. If you understand,
Sorry.
yeah. So if we understand Varna as only guna and karma, it helps in some dialogues on social media. But if we probe further, then we will either have to say that all of Dharma Shastras are wrong, or we have to admit that this may be correct, but it's not a complete understanding, right? So that's where the whole understanding became stuck. Using the definition of Varna as merely occupations or external characteristics was insufficient to explain why the rishis have different set of rules for women and the Shudra Varna. So more than 100 of those rules have been put forward in the book Varna Vidya, and we have decoded all of them. The way the understanding has to unfold is, if you understand it at the subtle level, then we should be able to explain not just one or two verses of the Shastras, but just about all of them. And with the understanding as occupation, there are so many that we cannot answer. We cannot answer why women in the Shudra Varna should not do the Upanayanam, should not chant the Gayatri Mantra. We cannot understand, so many of these rules that are there. So then we have to come to the understanding this is not enough. This is good to bring the conversation from caste to guna and karma, but it is not enough to explain the deeper aspects. Now, this is at the personal level, all that we spoke till now.
Mhm.
Many of us are unaware how this oversimplified understanding of Varna is being used, or rather misused, by those who want to create mischief. And we see this very evidently in states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu, where they are pushing to bring in bills where women and the Shudra Varna should be allowed to officiate in temples where traditionally it was never meant for them. Now, there are some spaces where they can officiate, and we will, if time permits, go into those rules. But because we said it's just about guna, we are saying anyone who can exhibit that quality, anyone who can learn those processes and mantras should be allowed to officiate. It doesn't work like that. And this is another very crucial point we are going to have to understand deeper, because otherwise it would lead to problems just as it happened in the Sabarimala case.
Mhm.
The question must be asked, if women and the Shudra Varna are made to officiate in temples which is not suitable to them, we will come to what that means in a bit. If that is the case, one, how does it affect the person officiating as the priest? How does it
Mhm.
impact their health? Two, how does it affect the chaitanyam of the temple itself? And three, how does it impact the community that visits that space?
Mhm.
These three things have to be thoroughly understood before we generalize and say that anyone who has a certain guna or certain ability to chant or do some rituals can officiate in certain temples. So, this is the reason why we need to dig deeper and understand what is meant by Varna. Before we go further, you found the book very logical, very
Mhm.
academic, etc., which is interesting because it was not planned in that way and it did not unfold in that manner. Those things were added later so that you could appreciate it. But I think it's important to share with the viewers how the book unfolded. And there's a reason why Devi is here. She is Lalitambika. She's the one whose thousand names we utter as Lalita Sahasranamam. And she's the one on the cover page of this book. So when you open this book, there is an instruction which many people tend to ignore. The instruction is before this book is read, visualize her, surrender to her, and seat her in your heart. And when we do that, she is the one who will reveal the deeper understanding of Varna. Why do we say that? In Lalita Sahasranamam, one of the names of Devi is Varnashrama Vidhayini. A Brahma Kita Janani Varnashrama Vidhayini. So, Mother who has created Brahma to the smallest insect is also the one who created the Varna and Ashrama systems. So, Devi Upasak should get a big clue from this. When we say that Devi is the Varnashrama Vidhayini, it means Varna and Ashrama are not man made social constructs. That is the first big thing which we have to register in our mind. If it was man made, if it was a mere social idea, something to organize society, then Devi would not be called by that name. So the very fact that she is called Varnashrama Vidhayini means that this is a biological subtle quality inherent in all her creations, from Brahma to the tiniest insect, and also not just humans, but animals, trees, plants, and basically everything that is matter. That is Varna, and I will pause at this point to tell you how this unfolded. So it is only by Devi's Anugraha that the essence of Varna can be understood by subtle perception. And once that experience is granted by Devi through the Guru's Anugraha, the rest is just a matter of putting together enough academic stuff to make it look acceptable. But this is not something that can be arrived at from the outside.
Mhm.
Can't read 100 books and arrive at this knowledge. The
Sure.
first instance of that knowledge should be through an experience, which is how the rishis knew it by their ability to perceive subtle reality. And once that becomes real, the rest can be created. So the actual book can be completed, it could have been written in 5 pages. There would
Uh-huh.
be no citations, nothing, but it is exactly how Devi would have wanted us to know it. The
Yeah.
rest of it was just stuff so that it becomes believable and logical and academic.
No, I love the fact that it's academic because, I'm an academic and, my complaint, if at all, about the earlier book, Women in Sabarimala, was that it was anecdotal. And in this one, I see you come across as a very mature writer and I loved it. So I have questions about the actual theory that you worked out. And I'm actually absolutely fascinated by what you've just said about the Devi, revealing to you some of this, something like that, right? That all of it, yes. So that's really very interesting for me because this is a live tradition, isn't it? So when we have doubts, we can always ask our gods and goddesses, and very often we do receive answers, whether we like those answers or not, or whether we're able to translate those answers to our current milieu or not. Sometimes we understand it much later in life, but those answers are there for anyone who wants to access them, because it's a living tradition. So you talk about Varna as light and sound. So tell us a little bit about that. That's, I think, the crux of what you're getting at in this book. And it's definitely not the very opaque understanding of caste we have today with us. In fact, we don't have a good theory of the caste system, even in the social sciences. It's kind of acknowledged that we don't have a good theory to accommodate all the facts. So your theory is very interesting, light and sound. Do tell us about.
Okay, it's not my theory again. I'd like to say it upfront that nothing I say is an opinion. Uh, Everything is based in the Shastras. The Shastras have said this, the Vedas have said this at some point or the other. So if I would have said it without that, then you would have thought it's my opinion. But I've given all the citations in the book as to where this knowledge is derived from, right? So when I used to listen to the Lalita Sahasranamam frequently, uh, Devi kept throwing this name Varnashrama Vidhayini, Varnashrama Vidhayini. It just kept playing in my mind throughout the day, 24 by 7. And I did not understand why, because I was working on Streedharma Paddhati. That was the book that had to be written. But Varnashrama Vidhayini kept getting thrown out. And it got to a point where I couldn't work on anything else, only this kept happening. So I sat down and said, okay, Varnashrama Vidhayini. What does that mean? Because I would never have intellectually written a book on caste or Varna. I always thought that's not my subject. That's history. Let the historians do it. We have great Indic scholars who've done so much work on that. Need not get into that. That was my view about the subject. I've not read the existing books also, so head is quite empty. Devi kept throwing Varnashrama Vidhayini, and then subsequently there was also her other names. There is the Matrika Varna Rupini. Again, the word Varna comes, and if you look at this, and so I kept asking her, what does it mean? And the thought that came, which she threw in the mind, was what is the most common understanding of the word Varna? So, like a child, I said color, because in every regional language, Varna is color. And she said, yes, think more along those lines. I said, color. The whole Chaturvarna Ashrama has got to do with color. And then again, when you say Matrika Varna Rupini, you think of the Sapta Matrikas. And then the much deeper, finer connection to chakras in Tantra with all of that. Varna is also Varnamala. We see that word appear in Varnamala, which is about alphabets. So here you have Varna as color, and here you have Varna as alphabets. We can simplify it as sound. There's color, there's sound. There is a third understanding, which I've written later in the book, not so obviously. That also has to do with the most common, what is the word we use for describing? We say varnane or varnan or varnana in different regional languages. There again, varna comes. So anything which is a description, what is a description? It is the guna. We are describing the qualities, the thoughts or the emotions. So that also has the word varna. So there is color, there is sound, and there is quality, thoughts and emotions. All these three, we have the same Sanskritam word, varna. And all Sanskritam Pandits know this and they say this. No name in Sanskritam is randomly given. For all the conversations we've had on Varna, we haven't thought deeply that nowhere does Varna directly mean occupation or directly mean karma. And yet we say that it is that. It does not mean that. What Bhagavan Sri Krishna has written is the manifestation of Varna. It is not Varna itself. If Varna is so and so and so, it manifests as this guna, as this karma. So those are manifestations of Varna again, they are not Varna. What is Varna? That answer we will find if we understood what is common between color, sound, and thoughts and emotions at the subtle level. So here Varna as color, Varna as sound, and also Varna as the description of thoughts and emotions. So, what is common between these three? Now we will go a level deeper. If you look at color, technically in physics, what is color? It is one frequency of an electromagnetic radiation. The entire electromagnetic spectrum, there is visible light consisting of the colors of the rainbow, and each of those colors are basically one frequency of electromagnetic radiation. We can refer to this as one type of vibration, a frequency of vibration of light. So red is one frequency of vibration, blue is another frequency of vibration, right? So this is the way physics understands color. Now, how do we understand sound? The easiest definition of sound is it is known and quantified and measured as frequencies of vibration. That is how we understand sound. So again, we have frequency of vibration in color and frequency of vibration in sound. Similarly, in Sanatana Dharma, there has always been this understanding that thoughts and emotions at the subtle level are specific frequencies of emotions. When you operate at certain frequencies, there are specific thoughts. When the frequency is low, the thoughts are more negative in nature, more about anger, more about lust, more about attachment. When the frequency is higher, the thoughts are more about compassion, about seva, about bhakti. So, this is an understanding that is given. So, in all these three definitions of Varna, what comes out as common is vibration or the frequency of vibration. See,
Yeah.
Nikola Tesla is known to have made this great statement that if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. The rishis did not merely think, they experienced, they perceived reality in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And everything that the rishis have written in the Shastras have come from that subtle perceptive ability. If we make ourselves subtle enough to perceive this reality, there will be no question in our mind as to what is Varna because it would be an experience. Wherever you go, whether it's a space or a person or a conversation or a book, it has a certain vibration. We know this at a very intuitive level. But by defining it as Varna, the rishis give us so many ways in which we can quantify it and understand it better. So that's the simplified way of understanding what is Varna and how it manifests as color and sound.
Yeah. So instead of directly controlling our thoughts and emotions, if we just vibe at a certain level in a certain way, we automatically gain control over thoughts and emotions. Because often we try to do that, directly control them, and that becomes a big struggle. It's almost impossible to get a hold of them. But I think the insight of the Indian traditions is that you vibrate at a certain level and then other things just fall into place. So at a scientific rational level, we tend to think that these things are independent things that you can get a hold of independently, but that's not the Indian understanding of it. So what you're saying about vibrations is very interesting. It's subtle, definitely, and as light and sound, that's very interesting. Again, because like you said, thought and emotions are seen as the same in the Indian traditions. Body and mind as same, and so on. So we tend to collapse the categories that the West separates, as it were. And similarly, light and
As
sound
if I may
too.
interrupt you, it's not seen as the same, but
Mhm.
it's understood as part of a whole. For
Uh-huh.
example, in the Western understanding, we say mind like this, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Here, Manovaha Strotas and Pranavaha Strotas originate from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So even in the manifestation of sound, there is para sound, which is unmanifest or just manifesting at the Muladhara. There is Pashyanti sound at Manipura. This is your gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever a thought reaches you before the word, you experience it as Pashyanti Shabda. Then there is Madhyama in the heart where it is an emotion. That thought has now become an emotion. So women know this intuitively, especially mothers. Even if their child is physically somewhere else, something has happened, their heart starts throbbing. So that is the madhyama level of sound that women are perceiving. Finally, what we are uttering now is the Vaikari. That is the manifest version. But we understood it at different levels very, very specifically. So it's not a vague understanding. It's very specific. The Manovaha Strotas means those channels that carry thoughts. They originate in the heart, not here. This is just a processing unit. The origin is here. Origin of the mind is here. That's the difference.
So yeah, this is very interesting. The way you map it on to the chakras at a later stage.
The way the book is written, now you stated something that as you were having questions, they were being answered, isn't it?
Mhm.
That was a conscious attempt.
Mhm.
Uh, when a book like this is written, the surprising part, which people may find surprising, we normally assume that the research is done before and then we know what we're going to write and then we write it. Is it not? Is that not how you would have imagined the book would have happened?
Yeah.
It did not happen like that.
Mhm.
There were many things in this book which I learned as the writing happened. Many times I had no clue where this was heading, and I would ask her, but this, I don't know, I don't see where this is going. So I would make a few attempts to use my intellect and write it, and it would hit an absolute dead end, and I had to delete all the pages. And then she would be throwing these thoughts so severely. I would wake up with just these thoughts, and until it is put in writing, it wouldn't stop. And I didn't know where these thoughts are headed. So she would always say, "You write, I'll tell you. You write, but I don't know what is the second sentence." She said, "You write, I'll tell you." So I learned while writing. So, why I'm saying this is because some people may think that we are forcibly trying to make a connection to chakras or something. I did not even intend to write this book. That just unfolded.
Mhm.
So I will tell you now how that unfolded, how we arrived at that connection of Varna to chakras. Let's take the most common definition of Varna, which is as per the Purusha Sukta. It is there in Manusmriti. Most Hindus know it. The Shudra Varna is described as emerging from the feet of the divine Purusha, the Vaishya Varna from the thighs, Kshatriya Varna from the arms, and the Brahmana Varna from the mouth, some say the face of the divine Purusha. This is what we have in writing in the Shastras. Now, how does this correlate to chakras? We are not trying to make any forcible correlation, but we will just try to see what did the rishis mean by saying this. Now, there is a Yoga Upanishad. These are a set of texts in the Upanishads where there is the understanding of Panchabhutas, of Nadis, of Chakras. Usually we think this is only in Tantra. No, there is a set of Upanishad texts called Yoga Upanishad texts. One of those texts, called the Trishiki Brahmopanishad,
Mhm.
clearly mentions that different parts of the body have the dominance of different Panchabhutas. So the feet have the dominance of the Prithvi Tattva, the earth element. The thighs, the dominance of the Jala Tattva, water element. The genitals, reproductive organs, and the abdomen up to the chest, it is the Agni element. From here, it is the Vayu, and the head is the Akasha. So this mapping is again written by rishis and it is available in the Upanishads. We can directly correlate this to what the Purusha Suktas have said because the body of the Purusha has been mapped. That means those who have the body of a Shudra Varna have the dominant quality of the Prithvi Anu. What are these Panchabhutas? In English, they would be subatoms.
Mhm.
Subatoms, not Newton's atoms, but subtler than that, what quantum physicists knew, subatoms, Paramanu. So, what the rishis said is that there are these five indivisible subatoms, and matter cannot be divided further. And these five are the Prithvi, Apas or water, Agni, Vayu, and Akash. Okay, so those who have the Shud or are the Shudra Varna, the atoms in their body would be of such a nature that there would be a dominance of the Prithvi Tattva. So all the qualities associated with the Prithvi Tattva, heaviness, a sort of a lethargic feeling, the desire to have an explosion of the senses, taste, touch, smell, all that will be, there will be that craving for that excess in those who have a dominance of the Prithvi Tattva. Then there is the Jala Tattva, which has similarly certain properties. And then the Agni Tattva is what gives that fiery fire power to the Kshatriya Varna to battle. They can't do the work of the others. So when you start observing this, people realize that whatever Paramanus, whatever Panchabhutas are dominant in a particular part of the body, and whichever Varna emerges from that part of the Purusha Sukta will have qualities of that particular Tattva. Those who are familiar with the Panchamahabhutas, this understanding is enough. They will get all their answers. If there's a dominance of Akasha Tattva, how will the individual be? If there's a dominance of Vayu Tattva, how will the individual be? If there's a dominance of Agni, how will the individual be? This gives the answers. If there is still insufficient clarity, then at the next level, Devi said, the Panchabhutas are connected to the chakras, and this we see in the Tantra text. Every chakra is associated with a specific Panchabhuta. So that's where the association comes. The Shudra Varna having a dominant Prithvi Tattva primarily vibrates at the frequency of the Mooladhara Chakra. That is what is safest for them. That is what makes them healthy. And all their guna, which is described in Bhagavad Gita, is as per that. The karma prescribed for them is as per that. Similarly, the Vaishya Varna who are dominant in the Jala Tattva, and there are other texts which extend that to the navel. So there is Jala and Agni, we can consider as a combination for them, in which case it is the play of Swadhisthana and Manipura for them. Swadhisthana as the reproductive and Manipura as the navel. So we see this in the guna of the Vaishya Varna that there's always a desire to have Sri Lakshmi blessings in their life. There is Aishwaryam. They are the ones who bring in wealth in the community and prosperity. That is the vibration of Mahalakshmi. We see that in them. In addition, Bhagavad Gita says that Go Seva, Krishi, these are the ideal occupations for them because the vibration of Go Mata is that of the healthy Swadhisthana. It is so beautiful and scientifically laid out. We can only wonder at the level at which the rishis perceived reality. Then you go up the Kshatriya Varna Agni, so it's described as the arms. So the entire length of the arms, if you see, that is the whole region of Agni and a little bit of Vayu. So for the Kshatriya Varna, vibrations begin at the level of the Manipura, which has Agni as the dominant, goes to Anahata. See, without an active Manipura, they can't do their dharma of protecting, of fighting, of battling, of preserving dharma. That is their dharma. And they are able to do it because of this dominance of Agni. Now, there are positive and negative qualities in all these, and we will come to that maybe later. But that's why the dharma of Rakshan, of protection, is of the Kshatriya, because naturally there's fire. And with that fire comes other qualities too. If they raise their vibration to Anahata, to heart, then they become excellent leaders and kings because this is where inclusivity comes, compassion comes, the courage to protect, and the fearlessness to speak the truth and to include everyone in a compassionate embrace. That is possible for the Kshatriya Varna because this is a natural vibration for them. And then you go higher, they can come to the Vishuddhi. And in some cases, we say the Raja Rishi. Some Rajas were like Rishis, like Janaka. If there is the Guru Anugraha, and based on which of these frequencies are natural for them through many births, if they are here, they could cross over as well to higher regions. The Brahmana Varna's base vibration is at the heart. They should not go lower than that. So it is the heart and above. So it's Vayu and Akasha Tattva that should be dominant in their body.
Mhm.
There should be nothing in their life which is about taking. Their entire body, their entire purpose of life should be about giving. So actually, it looks like the Shudra Varna has been prescribed Seva, but a far greater Seva is prescribed for the Brahmana Varna. They cannot go after name or fame or making money. Whatever japa, homas they do should be for the sake of social good, for the sake of others. They have to maintain inner purity so that society benefits because this is the highest vibration. In society, if the highest vibration is there in the bodies of those who can handle it, everyone else is protected. And there is many layers of understanding this. Even if I talk for another hour or so, it may be insufficient. They will have to read the book.
Mhm.
At this point, I will say one last thing and pause. Question may come to a lot of people's mind because we said everyone can do everyone's guna and karma.
Mhm.
But same Bhagwan Sri Krishna says in that same chapter, a few verses later, he says, Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharmat Swanushthitat Swabhavaniyatam Karma Kurvan Napnoti Kilbisham. That is, if you do karma according to your own Swadharma, that is best for you. Even if you're able to do somebody else's karma well, do not do it. If you do, it will incur kilbisham. Kilbisham has been translated as sin. It could also mean disease. In Parashara Smriti, many people say Manusmriti is not for this yuga. Okay, read Parashara Smriti, which is for this yuga. In that he says, if the Shudra Varna does any other karma which is not prescribed for him, which is of any other Varna, his lifespan will be reduced. We're talking of a very biological quality. His lifespan will be reduced. This should make us think what will happen if a person whose natural vibration is of one chakra or a range of chakra,
Mhm.
what happens when they do the work of a higher vibration? Now, we spoke about the tatwas as being subatoms. So, to understand this, we must go to the subatomic level in the human body. Um, it will become a little complicated if I say it, but I will still say it briefly because in this lies all the answers. Why women should not do certain chants and other things, because the vibration, if the vibration is more than what the atoms in our body can handle, the electrons surrounding the atom jumps off their shell looking for the higher energy orbit. So we have atom, nucleus, the center, electrons around it.
Mhm.
The electrons are in a stationary state. They are in the energy which is suitable to them. Now you, let's say you start chanting or you are doing some karma which is not for you. The vibration increases, so the electron jumps looking for a higher energy level. But if your body does not have that higher energy level, the electron just falls off the atom and the atom turns into a free radical. This happens not to one atom, en masse to all the atoms in your body. You raise its vibration to what it can't handle, en masse there are production of free radicals which manifest as oxidative stress.
Mhm.
And you repeatedly put your body through oxidative stress, it is the primary cause, or at least they see oxidative stress manifesting in infertility, in various menstrual reproductive health issues, in cancer, in dementia, in Parkinson's, you name it. So that's why Bhagwan says, avoid kill Visham, and Parashara Smriti says, the lifespan will be cut short. We don't understand at the subtle level how medicine and biology functions because modern science is not going below atoms.
Mhm.
Physics and chemistry have gone, so we have quantum physics, we have quantum mathematics, but quantum biology is still very, very new. When we begin to understand how the atoms in the body behave and change based on the body's inherent vibration capacity, these things will become very obvious. At least we have studies which show that every human has a specific resonant frequency. Your resonant frequency is the one which is your upper limit. If you go beyond this, your atoms go into oxidate, become free radicals, you go into oxidative stress. That understanding is there. So there are few such papers.
Mhm.
But what I would say is this is something everyone can know through experience. For women, it is the most obvious thing. When they go to a temple of very high vibration, their cycles completely go go out of order. So if women went to Sabarimala, that's what would happen for them. And for the others, for example, for men of the Shudra Varna, if they officiate as archakas in certain temples which were never for them, the first problem will be to their own body. Their body will frequently go into oxidative stress. They will experience this as a feeling of exhaustion. Much later, it may manifest as an obvious disease. But until then, we would keep, how do we know that this is the cause? So, because we are not looking in this direction, we are saying, oh, everyone can do everything. So, there's a lot of danger to this. And if we really care about even the rights of women and the Shudra Varna, this must be studied thoroughly for their own sake.
Yeah, so there are negative consequences to changing the rules of the Dharma Shastras. That's very interesting. I just remembered the connection that I was looking for earlier to this. You call it aura, right? Before you even come to the connection with chakras, you call it aura. And I thought that the important clarification you were offering was that color or varna there is not about skin color. And that's very interesting because often there is this, especially when a story like this, wherein Shiva looks at Kali and says, "Don't come as Kali, come as Gauri." There is this story, and then she becomes, her original form of a more pleasant and so on. So that story is often looked at, and it's said that look, there is a colorist tendency in the Hindu world. We generally tend to say that look, oh, Krishna was dark and so on, but women should be fair, this is the expectation. And look at the story, for instance, and so on. But the way you have described the whole varna thing in this book shows us this is not about skin color, that this is about lightness and heaviness. And if we think about this story, then Kali, because she was in her violent form, she was dark, and Shiva wants to meet his wife in her pleasant form, which is understandable. Am I reading the story right? Now that I have.
So I'm not calling it aura. It is for
Mhm.
lack of a better word in English that we call it aura. So the
That's good
right
to know.
word would be the color of the koshas.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the pancha koshas. The
Mm-hmm.
koshas show a certain color based on our vibration. Let
Mm-hmm.
me explain this a little more in detail. And the origin of this, when we say aura, it sounds so like, some vague Western concept. No. The earliest mention of Varna is in the Rig Veda. So they refer to devatas like Varuna as Shuchayo Varna, bright Varna. And they refer to the Rakshasas and Asuras as Krishna Varna. So we see Krishna Varna being referred to Rakshasas. It is certainly not skin color because then Bhagwan would not be called Krishna because he is, referred. What are we saying? One, it is not skin color. The devatas have the higher vibration. By virtue of it, you will see a brighter light around them. In all the paintings, even of Devi here, the light around the head and around the whole body is bright. That is Shujayo Varna. And when the aura is so intense, that color throws on the face, not the color of the skin, but there it would look like a bulb is switched on within. We see this in the face of gurus. Those who
Mm-hmm.
are subtle may not know the difference, but it's actually so evident. Or you look at the face of any Brahmana who's doing, all the Agni Karyas and everything
Uh,
regularly. That thing in them, it is the tejas, not the color of the skin, but there is that glow from within as if the bulb is turned on inside. That is what we are saying. And if you are subtle enough,
yes.
if you observe things or people, you will see a light around that head. And the color of that light is what is being spoken of.
Yeah.
The Rig Veda, the Devatas are like Varuna are referred to as having Shuchayo Varna, bright or clean Varna. And the Asuras are referred to as having Krishna Varna. So if Krishna Varna meant dark skin, then Bhagwan Shri Krishna would have been an Asura, right? So it is certainly not the case. So when we say Shuchayo Varna or Krishna Varna, it is a reference to the color of the light in the koshas. So there is the physical body. Around the physical body, we have the light body. We have names for it in Sanatana Dharma. Annamaya Kosha is this body, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha. Based on which of these koshas you're operating and how pure your vibrations are, there will be a light around you, and that light will have specific colors. This is there in the Chandogya Upanishad. Chandogya Upanishad said in the olden days, ordinary grihasthas, ordinary householders, would look at people, would look at objects and know what it is because they knew three colors. They knew Lohita Varna, they knew Krishna Varna, and Shweta Varna. The first is red, black, and white. What are they referring to? It's so obviously there. They are referring to not the color of the object or of the skin, it is the light around the object or the skin.
Yeah.
That is why, for us, Varna is not of humans and certainly not of only Hindus. Some people think chakras also only Hindus have. All humans have it. Similarly, Varna also, not just all humans, everything that is of creation. Brahmakita Janani Varnashrama Vidhaini. Everything she created has Varna. If you can become subtle enough to see the aura of things or to experience its vibration, you will know what this is about. You will not need the citations and the theories and the academic work. Just that knowledge. You hold a stone, in Ratna Pariksha, in Brihat Samhita, in section called Ratna Pariksha, diamonds are classified based on three varnas. White diamond is Brahmana Varna, the yellow diamond is Kshatriya Varna, and the black diamond is Shudra Varna. What are we talking about here? Occupation? Jati?
Yeah.
In
Just
Vriksha, the trees are classified based on Varna. When the Dvijas are during the Upanayanam ceremony, the boys of the first three Varnas, each one is given a different tree to hold as a danda. Why? Because that tree's vibration is of a particular multiple. In music, we have the fundamental frequency and then its multiples that forms harmonics. So plants are classified as Varna, animals are classified as Varna, and all those are cited in the book. So Varna is not of Hindus, it is not man-made, it is not a social construct, and it is not occupation. It is the fundamental vibrational quality of anything that is composed of atoms. You can either see it or you can experience the vibration because the rishis perceived this reality when they looked at someone. So we have stories, no, of how the rishi initiated someone, though he was the Shudra Varna. The rishi looked at the person and saw the aura and knew what they were. I'll give one example which perhaps a lot of people can easily see and know. Why is Krishna depicted in blue or dark green, Shama Varna? He is not of a body, he's just light. And that color of that light is blue. Blue is of the highest frequency. In the rainbow colors, with pure, there is violet, indigo. Those are the colors that we say of Sri Krishna. Just observe any color video or a colored photo of Satya Sai Baba. Around his head, at the tips of his head, there's a very visible electric blue light. Very, very evident. I see it very clearly. I know a few others have also seen it. Just observe, and then you will start seeing what is meant by Varna. It shows as color. And the more the person is lit up from within, the brighter and the spread and the extent of their Varna. And this can be known through perception.
Yeah. 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 So the Mahabharata also classifies,
Sorry,
humans.
I don't know if I answered your question about Kali and Gauri. That was why we started this. Would you
Yeah,
like to do
yeah. You did. You told me that. See, the important clarification for me is that aura, the English word, is not something. That it's not your first choice, but that you're you're doing with it, make doing with it for now because There are no other terms to capture the idea that you're getting at. That's important because there could be, people out there who want to ask you why you use these kinds of concepts, that are sometimes thought of as pseudoscience, perhaps. And so that's why that clarification to me was very, very important, so that you're not compelled to using them, but one
But
must find a way of
I've
explaining.
never used only that. That is
Hmm.
one of the things. It has, in fact, there are research papers shared which talks about biophotons. That would be a better
Hmm.
language to use. There are published studies which show that there are biophotons that emit light in all matter. So we
Hmm.
can call it biophotons if you prefer a more technical thing. But sometimes we use words that people understand. When you say aura, there's an understanding of it. If I say biophoton, I may be technically right, but majority of people may not understand it. And I'll tell you another thing. We are so obsessed with getting the right language, but those who are actually self-realized, the Jivan Muktas, the sannyasis who talk about this, when they speak about Varna in English, they say caste. They
Hmm.
are not very worried about getting the word right. Why? Because they know it as an anubhava.
Hmm.
Once you know it as an experience, you're not very concerned about the language. Those who are concerned about the language have, in fact, no subtle perception ability. So they are entirely only relying on the language. And then they say pseudoscience, yes, pseudoscience, no. Drop that. Don't believe anything you don't want to believe. But work on yourself to become subtle enough to perceive these things so that
Hmm.
the language doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Why I find aura or Kirlian photography something else equally relevant because I can see aura. And when I see what they write in Kirlian photography, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Because once the perception happens, there's no
Mhm.
confusion in you. When you cannot perceive, you doubt everything around you. So doubt is of the lowest frequency of vibration. So when we operate from that frequency, we will doubt everything.
Yeah.
And as for Kali and Gauri, that's very important actually.
Hmm.
It is not one is good and the other is bad. Kali is a, an angry state, right? And anger is an emotion of the lower frequency.
Hmm.
We related to Swadhisthana and Muladhara. So, because it is of lower frequency in some temples of Kali, people of the Shudra Varna, and in some cases, women can also officiate because that vibration matches. In fact, any Ugra Devata, even
Hmm.
Narsimha or any Ugra Devata, Shudra Varna can also officiate as priest because that vibration matches. But
Yeah.
if you have to meet with Shiva, either Shiva should come to that frequency of being in an angry form,
Mm.
or Devi had to become Gauri, which means her vibration had to be raised. When she operates in the heart and above, for example, Devi here, it's a Dhyana Hatha and above.
Yeah.
So in that state, her color changes, not of the skin, the aura changes.
Yeah. So that the very fact that you account for different temples for different jatis, which is there even now, and different priests of different castes, which is a fact. Everybody knows this. You account for that as well. So through all of this, you're also explaining how that works, because Brahmins are not the only priests. That's the misinformation. There are different temples for different jatis with different kind of devatas, and they have their own priests and other practices and so on. That's something that we don't acknowledge, and your overall understanding kind of explains that as well. So I was thrilled to see how many different things in this way the book has explained. So you talk about the why the certain mantras are prohibited for women and shudras, and you talk about vibrations, and you tell us about how it hits the skull the most, and therefore that again sounded very logical and well derived. Can you talk about that a little bit?
About the mantras and sound vibrations.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Why the prohibition, and the variations on the prohibitions. So sometimes a little bit of a different gayatri is given, and so on. All of the different variations on the rules.
Uh, um, Sound. We think that we as modern people know a lot about sound, but you'd be surprised to know the fine, subtle knowledge of sound that the rishis had. They divided mantra japa itself into three types. First, and this is based on when sound moves through a medium, based on the density of the medium, the frequency of the sound changes. So air is, so now when I'm talking, air is the medium. The sound is thrown outwards, air is the medium, it reaches you. Air, the density of air is low, and this is safe enough for women to receive mantras. So the rule that the Shastras have written and Shankaracharya has also said is women should not chant mantras, they can listen to it. Including the Vishnu Sahasranamam and the Lalita Sahasranamam, even Mahaperiyava said women are not to chant it. Then someone asked him, what about M.S. Amma? She has sung the Vishnu Sahasranam. He said, don't compare. She was like a Rishika. So she was so pure from within, every concert of her, she never took money, she just gave it away. That purity you bring inside you, completely become devoid of material pursuits of name, fame, money, and come into that state where you vibrate from the heart, then the rules may change for you. But until then, especially women of menstrual years, you listen to Vishnu Sahasranam, you listen to Lalita Sahasranam, do not chant them yourself. What is allowed the chant is Nama Japa for women. This is also written in the Shastras. If you are a follower of Shiva, you say Namah Shivaya. Om is not is prohibited for women as per the Shastras. So Namah Shivaya. You can repeat that. Or if you're a follower of Vishnu, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. And honestly, this is more than enough. It depends on the bhakti with which you're doing. In fact, when bhakti blossoms in you, you don't even need that. Just the thought of the Lord will just will do what is needed. So that was the path for women. See, at the core, we should be very clear. Shastras never said women can't attain moksha. Never.
Mhm.
Women and Shudra Varna will also attain moksha in this very birth, will make spiritual progress in this very birth, provided they follow their Swadharma. Now, instead of listening to Lalita, if you start chanting it, what will happen? Every name of Devi creates a current in the body.
Mhm.
Your whole cells start vibrating. Body cannot handle it. You may lose awareness if you become subtler. Great. Thankfully, we are very materially oriented, so it does not impact. We're listening to Lalita, we're chanting, but we're thinking about many other things, so we are safe for now. That is how Devi does not let it happen. Many people wonder why I'm not able to progress because you're doing that which is not suited to your body, and Devi is protecting you by not allowing that to happen. One example is how left, right, and center people are initiating everyone into Sri Vidya Upasana.
Mhm.
Such an esoteric practice, and it was so specific to only Brahmanas, and if given to others, there were so many conditions, and it was all guhya. You don't announce and say, come, there is a meeting, I'm going to initiate everyone. That's what's happening today. But the same thing, the good thing is, Devi does not allow those sadhakas to progress. She
Mhm.
will keep them rooted in the material plane that they will never experience what should happen through Sri Vidya. There is one beautiful thing which a devotee of Satya Sai Baba, Mrs. Jaya Natarajan, has spoken, and it is there in the official channel of Satya Sai Baba. Baba says, how do you know if one is eligible for mantras which have bijakshas, like Lalita Sahasranamam or Sri Vidya? It's all bijakshas. How do you know if you're eligible? He says, see, everyone can say Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. But to chant a bijakshar, you should be someone in whom, in utter silence, you are able to hear the sound of Om.
Mhm.
In absolute silence, if you hear Om within you,
Mhm.
you're eligible and you can receive the Bija mantras. So those who are giving it and those who are receiving it must ask themselves, am I really ready for it?
And
So this is this Vasika, we are talking about the categories of sound. Vasika is what you utter, and air is the medium. Women can listen to those, not chant, listen. Second is Upanshu, I think I have to remember. Look, wherein you mutter it. You mutter it outward but inward. So those who are initiated into Gayatri, they can do that. They can just repeat the Gayatri very softly. So the vibrations are carried down the throat. And then bones start vibrating. The bones have a higher density. The flesh, blood have a higher density than air. So the minute you do that, the vibrations of that same chant will be more. So initial level, you say it outwards. It's a diluted mantra and it's mostly for others. Minute you start saying it inward, the vibrations are more. That's why women should not do it, but those who are initiated can. The third level, which is the highest vibration, is Manasa Japa. You're not uttering anything in your mouth. You're still, and the japa is happening inside you. So there, the reverberations happen in the head. The skull has the highest density. So when those reverberations happen, this is the highest vibration. Only Brahmanas should ideally do this. If you see in Kerala Tantra, for the Homa and everything, they don't utter anything. They use mudras and everything is internal. Very high vibration. So the sound was classified like this based on the understanding that depending on the medium through which it traverses, its frequency keeps on increasing. And accordingly, there were rules. So women in Shudra Varna, listen to Vishnu Sahasranama, do not chant it. Those who are initiated into Gayatri, you can chant it within, and when you reach a certain stage, stop even that, it should happen in your mind. Now, there is Gayatri itself for the three Varnas, which is different, and that is given in this book. What we see in the Rig Veda was prescribed only for the Brahmana Varna. There was a different version of it for Vaishya Varna, different for Kshatriya Varna, and beautifully in the Streedharma Paddhati, there is an equivalent hymn to the sun, which women can utter when they offer argham to the sun. I think that can be considered as women's Gayatri. And since the Shastras have permitted it, women can do that. It is it is there in the Sridharma Paddhati book. And I've heard others also utter it. Namo Vivaswate Brahman Bhaswate Vishnu Tejase Jagat Savitre Shuchayor Savitre, I think, Phaladaine. So this is there for women as a hymn, a praise to Savitri.
Yeah.
That's for us. So hymns, shlokas, that is in praise, where the meanings are beautiful, you can utter. Once that cause vibration, your body will get into trouble for it. So there's really no cause to protest if you knew that the same benefit that is happening to a person of a higher vibration can happen for you. There is something, an equivalent of that for you. So our efforts should be to know what is the equivalent of that available for women, not that women should also be able to chant the mantra of the Brahmins.
Yeah. So another thing that I absolutely loved is that you own all the texts that we have. You don't reject selectively any of the texts. So there's Purusha Sukta, you have no problem with it, and you hold on to it. Similarly, the Uttara Ramayana, that too, because of the Shambhuka episode, you hold on to that. And no rejection for any of the Dharma Shastras, definitely not for Manusmriti. So you see the Dharma Shastras is derived from the Vedas, and this is also my favorite position. And so you retain all these various texts that sometimes Hindus want to reject because they don't kind of understand what's going on, and it gets uncomfortable. But you have retained all of these various things, and that I thought was a
It's
very
It's a beautiful point that you brought on, and I'm glad you did because I want all of us to deeply contemplate who wrote the Shastras. It was not Socrates and a Plato or some intellectual scholar.
Mhm.
Scholars can go a certain distance. You can read X books and we can do a copy paste. Shastras are not that.
Yeah.
Shastras are written by rishis who were Jivan Muktas.
Mhm.
They were realized beings. They experienced everyone and everything around them in their body. And they wrote it with a state of compassion. Why compassion? because they knew what it is to be a tree, a worm, a Shudra, a woman. They knew they could experience that. And their compassion was such that, okay, wherever that Jivatma is in its journey, how can we lead them also to moksha? It was with that perspective that they wrote. None of the texts written by rishis should be rejected by us. The minute we do that, Devi's Anugraha will never descend upon us. Saraswati will never teach us, and we will never understand the truth of it. So, the Mahaperiyava said something, before the word Hindu came, what were the people of Bharatvarsha called?
Mhm.
Many people say Vaidika and Sanatani. No. At the time of Adi Shankaracharya, according to Mahaperiyava, people were called Smartha, meant those who follow the Smriti. What is the Smriti? The Dharma Shastra. So it is fundamental to being a Hindu that you put in efforts to understand and follow Manu and all the other Smritis. Without that, actually, we have no right to say we are a Hindu. If you reject the Dharma Shastras, you're not a Hindu because being Hindu meant one who lives life as per the Dharma Shastras. So if you are going to take a technical definition of it, is what I mean. So do not reject those texts. You can reject what scholars have written. You can reject what I have written. You can reject that because what I've written is an interpretation of what the rishis have said. But do not reject what the rishis themselves have said.
Mhm.
Take that as Veda Vakyam. That is not wrong, that cannot be wrong. It is a great folly to reject it. When we do not understand it, the realization must come. My understanding is limited.
Mhm.
What we are currently doing is we are pulling down the rishis to our lower vibration and trying to explain the rishis as if they were scholars and thinkers. Instead, we have to raise our vibration, at least operate from the anahata, at least come from a place of compassion. Then you will begin to experience subtler things and we'll begin to know why the rishis wrote what they wrote.
Yeah, and the points that you make about the Vedas is also interesting. The Vedas are cryptic, so the best way to access them is through the Dharma Shastras. We have no other, way of doing this well. So there's no question of rejecting texts. So similarly, the Uttara Ramayana, because the Shambhuka makes people so uncomfortable, they love to reject it. I'm also of the opinion that we must, never start rejecting text because you can do this with one and then it just goes on. Every text can get uncomfortable in one or another way. So that was a really good point. But about Streedharma, I was wondering if, let me put it in two different ways and tell me what you think. If I say Sri Dharma is recommended for women's spiritual progress, would you say yes? Or would you say Sri Dharma is the only path for women's spiritual progress? Which is the statement that you would agree more with?
Neither. See, we should stop trying to get one line answers to make statements.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
Shastras cannot be understood like that. We should not try it also. Uh, and we should not speak based on our opinion. Never. We should say the Shastras say so and so. If what we are saying is not in line with the Shastras, please reject it. If anything I have said is not in line with the Shastras, please reject it. So immediately when we say women should not chant mantras, Vedic mantras, the thought that comes to mind is of Lopamudra. Oh,
Mhm.
the mantras that she saw, she was a drishta for, are there in Rigveda. That's the first thing people will say, isn't it? Now
Mhm.
understand it in depth. There is never a contradiction in Shastras.
Mhm.
Streedharma Paddhati, there is a huge phrase of Lopamudra by Brihaspati, who's telling her husband Rishi Agastya how great Lopamudra is. He says Lopamudra is greater than even Sita, Savitri, Anasuya, Arundhati. Compared to all of them, Lopamudra is the greatest. He never once mentioned that she used to chant the Vedas or do homas or all those things. Never once he mentions. What was the secret for Lopamudra's greatness?
Mhm.
They mention it as Pativrata Dharma. Now that itself will like what do you mean? So we think, you keep chanting Vedic mantras, keep chanting. One day you'll see the mantra. It does not happen like that. How do siddhis manifest? Siddhis manifest when whatever is our natural frequency of vibration that is cleaned up. So Lopamudra and all the women, Sati, Savitri, Anasuya, all women who are mentioned in the Vedas and the Puranas, did that, cleaning up of the lower vibration. When the lower vibration is disturbed, there is Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, etc. When those same lower vibrations are pure, then there is sneha, there is affection, there's unconditional love, there's no jealousy, there is no disturbed, feelings of attachment. Then that woman will become the clean vibration of Swadhisthana, which is Mahalakshmi. What is the difference between Mahalakshmi and an ordinary woman? It's just that in Mahalakshmi, those same lower frequencies are clean. In an ordinary woman, they are mixed up with other things. So, by Pativrata Dharma, women were taught to practice restraint over those tendencies which will disturb the vibration. And Lopamudra was someone who perfected Pativrata Dharma to such an extent that the siddhis of that chakra manifested for her. Because if you look at the mantra which she saw and which is there in her name, it is a mantra asking Rati, praying to Rati that she should have conjugal bliss, sexual union with her husband, who, because he was a rishi, was ignoring that aspect of life. So her mantra was not a moksha mantra. It was a mantra pertaining to that vibration only. But she attained that siddhi because her swadhisthana was so clean, was so pure. And even the other mantras of Lopamudra are of that vibration. The exception, there is the Durga Saptashati we chant one, that is attributed also to a female rishi, but the difference there is she was not identifying with the body. She had completely lost body awareness and had become one with that Devata Shakti. So, in that case, the Devata spoke through her. That is an exception. All the other Rishikas, you see Gosha, whatever mantra she had, that was for the prayer to the Ashwin Kumars. And Ashwin Kumars among the Devatas are categorized as the Shudra Varna Devatas. So Devatas also have Varna. So Ashwin Kumars are the Shudra Varna Devatas. So when your vibration of Mooladhara is pure, you will access the Ashwin Kumars. You will see Ganapati when your vibrations of Mooladhara are pure. Those siddhis can manifest, but it is not because she chanted the Vedas or she did something of that was for Brahmanas. No, you must understand this very clearly. Then we say Gargi and Maitri, what about them? They are mentioned. Nobody really knows what they did, we just know their names. So Gargi was following the path of Jnana. Study of the Vedanta and Upanishad is open to everyone. Jnana Marga, everyone can pursue. You can't quote Gargi and then teach women Purusha Sukta. No, Gargi wasn't uttering that. And what happened to Maitri? She got initiation into Brahma Vidya by her husband Rishi Yajnavalkya. What is Brahma Vidya? That is should be the result of studying the Upanishads. And if you study Pativrata Dharma properly, it will actually lead you to Brahma Vidya itself. It is a moksha shastra. We are looking at it from the social lens and therefore we are not understanding it. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna has said in Uddhava Gita, in the Bhagavatam and Uddhava Gita, he said everyone who's having pure emotions, having bhakti, even women at the Shudra Varna and even those lower than the Shudra Varna, the Chandalas and all those, they are all eligible for Brahma Vidya. We all can attain moksha, but that is the path through jnana and bhakti. That path is available for all. Just that we need to know what is suitable for the body. And there is no contradiction in the Vedas or the Shastras. Any woman who you appears to be a contradiction, dig a little deeper. She did not do anything other than Pativrata Dharma. Pativrata Dharma was her tool, her mark, her sadhana to purify. Now the question of what if women don't want to follow that path and they want to take to brahmacharya or sannyasa? We must go a little bit deeper. Why does the Atma get a Stri Sharira? At the time of death, whatever desires we hold, the Atma gets a body according to that. A Stri Sharira has the inherent samskaras of certain desires. Unless that is completed, the spiritual progress does not happen.
Mhm.
So it is the safest, most logical way for women to choose the path of Vivaha and Pativrata Dharma to finish those samskaras. You can't suppress certain feelings. You have to finish them, you have to live them, and then you raise spiritually. If you straight away take to brahmacharya or sannyasa while you're still feeling kama,
Mhm.
because for women, kama is not in the mind, it is in the biology. For men, it is in the mind. So they are told to practice brahmacharya because they need to gain control over the mind and control that. For women, the menstrual and reproductive process have inbuilt sexual tendencies to make procreation possible.
Mhm.
So that cannot be denied during the menstrual years. There will be some Atmas who are rare cases who, from their Purva Janmas, have already crossed that but have got a female body for some small amount of time to finish some pending prarabdha. The minute they finish that, they emerge as gurus. So those who we see as gurus, if you are going to not take Streedharma as your path, then the alternative, which will happen naturally for you, you did not try, is that you will become a mother to all.
Mhm.
If you can hold that feeling of mamata towards all, you become a guru. Happen to have a female body. But if you're holding kama, krodha, all that, then go through the path of Sri Dharma. It is easier, it is risk free, and you will eventually reach a higher state also. That is the way.
Yeah. I also liked how you understand Tantra, and you talk about how the tradition in Tantra is focused on Shiva and Shakti meeting, and that perhaps the yogini path in the Tantra tradition may not be the best suited one for women, because you hint at that, you don't elaborate on it. Am I right in reading that the Pativrata model is far more safe, secure for women than the yogini paths of Tantra, which is kind of vague and full of risks and so on. And some Western scholars who worked on this have shown how they're almost treated like sex workers, because they're passed on from one guru to another, because there is an abhava of women. There are not too many yoginis, hardly any, handful of women, and so to do the sadhanas, the same woman gets passed on. So her status, her the respect in the tradition naturally kind of goes down. So, so you two hint at this. Can you tell us a little bit more? I thought that this was also amazing, because we tend to ignore this, and we tend to forget why Tantra became a problem in the initial stages. Why Hindus tend to think of Tantra with some amount of discomfort, right?
It's very, very, very important because why they use women? Because naturally we have lower frequencies of vibration during our menstrual years. We operate from Muladhara and Swadhisthana. Now they may need that for certain practices, fine. But what about the woman? If you haven't risen beyond karma,
Mhm.
you're walking a very, very dangerous line. Very, very dangerous line. See, when you do certain rituals or sadhana that awakens the Kundalini Shakti, which is what Tantra is all about, then you begin to connect to other dimensions.
Mhm.
And based on the frequency at which you are vibrating, you can only attract beings of that frequency. So you're vibrating at the frequency of Swadhisthana, lower chakras, and you're carrying the emotion of karma. I have known so many cases where they attract pretas that are
Mhm.
full of kama bhava. And the woman goes through, they experience it as nightmares, as sufferings because they don't know, are they hallucinating? It is really happening. And
Mhm.
that thing further enhances that bhava in them. And you will know those who are, internet is full of it, those who are claiming that they are yoginis. Just
Mhm.
look at their eyes.
Mhm.
when the path is through Pativrata Dharma, women are encouraged to reach the state of Mamata. Kama should transform into a motherly love that is of a higher vibration, and you're safe. You will never be misused once you come to that. But Tantra wants you to remain in the Kama because that's the frequency that Tantra operates in. It's very risky for women. You attract, forget pretas, even humans you attract will be those who are obsessed with the karma. And that is the kind of things that happen in those women's lives, unfortunately. There may be very, very rare cases where the guru is really sattvic and protects the woman and takes care of her. But the minute she's out of the zone of the guru, anything could happen to her if she hasn't risen beyond karma. See, when the vibrations are in karma, you can't think right.
Mhm.
So you have to be very, very sure of who is guiding and protecting this person. Is she being protected at all? You can't think clearly. That vibration will not let you think clearly or make decisions with clarity. So, the Vedas and Shastras are always urging women to raise karma to bhakti, raise it to anahata. Then you're safe. And then you will not attract things of this nature into your life. That's the big difference. And how can anyone make out who they're dealing with? Because to an ordinary person who is a yogini, who is a guru, who is not, how can you make out? And so important this is for women to protect themselves. Simply go by what that person's presence makes you feel.
Mhm.
If a person's presence makes you feel fear,
Mhm.
anxiety, because mostly those who come as tantrics or as healers, they work on building fear in the opposite person. Because once there is fear, you can control them, and fear is a very low emotion. So is the person emanating fear, a darkness? If you can see the aura, you will see there is a darkness about them. Krishna Varna. They may be fair skinned, but there's darkness. If that is the case, please stay away for your own good. You,
Mhm.
after meeting such people, some of the energies that they are carrying might get transferred to you and will manifest in your own life as many inauspicious things. You will fall sick frequently, there will be accidents, there will be fights at home.
Mhm.
All these are warning bells. Stay away from these practices and practitioners. When the person in front of you is emanating vibrations of motherly love, of affection, you're feeling safe, you're feeling protected, then that is a safe place to be. So start coming in touch with what vibrations the other person is throwing. And this is for people's own safety, especially women, because it's so easy for women to lose the path.
That was really well said, because that's really the reason why tantra got a bad rap. And so it doesn't also include children, right? Because you have to be inclusive. Where do children figure in the tantra mode of life, if you so so from that perspective, the grihastha setup is ideal and safe for
Yes.
children and
Safe.
women.
It's the safest,
Yeah.
and the thing is, we think that the method of vivaha and all is, oh, we are not going to reach the goal. No, you will reach the goal in a much safer way. Tantra may promise you that you'd get siddhis and all that, but those come with so many risks and dangers that you may completely go off the path. By following the Vedas and the Shastras, you can be certain that you will reach your destination. With Tantra, anything could happen. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone once told me that there is quick progress, but you never know what happens in the end with Tantra. But this slow and steady tortoise like movement is often, much better than quick. The one thing that I could understand a little better from you is to do with the Y chromosome that you mentioned. And this is kind of my last question. I won't bother you more. So, tell us a little bit about this, because after this, you said that the Gotra change is complete, and why you explain Yoga. So many things are falling into place when you explain this. So that's
Yeah.
my last question.
So the
Yeah.
In answer to the question of why Upanayanam is not done for women and why the Streedharma Paddhati and Manusmriti and others say for women, Vivaha is the equivalent of Upanayanam. This is what the texts are saying. And how do we understand this? So, what happens in Upanayanam is that the boy is initiated into the lineage of the rishis, which is what we call Gotra.
Mhm.
Even when the divine takes a human form, whether it is as Sri Rama or Sri Krishna, they had to be initiated. They had to have a Guru Parampara. They had to do the samskaras had to be done for them because the human body comes in its raw form. That initiation into the spiritual lineage happens from the Upanayana ceremony onwards. What in our body stores the spiritual qualities?
Mhm.
That is the Y chromosome. The Y chromosome has the ability to store the spiritual qualities and the entire subtle vibrations of the Rishi Parampara. That is the Gotra that we call. So when a boy is initiated into Upanayana, initiated through Upanayana, he gets connected to the Pitrus and to the Rishis of his lineage. That is why, whether it is for the Shraddha ceremony or whatever, it is always the first choice that the son or the men of that Gotra do the ritual because that's when it will reach the disease the fastest because they're all connected by the same Y chromosome. If we understood this, what will you initiate women into through Panana? There is no Y chromosome in a woman's body. So, what are you trying to trigger in her?
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
So, that the rishis very beautifully say for
Mhm.
women, Vivaha is the equivalent of Upanayana because through Vivaha and the Vaidika Vivaha and through sexual intercourse, she receives the Y chromosome from the husband. So there are
Mhm.
enough modern studies, which I have quoted in the book, which show that after sexual intercourse, the DNA of the male is found in the female's body. Even after many, many years, it is found. So there was a study done in 2012, so recent, where they found that after sexual intercourse, when the Y chromosome enters, when the semen enters the woman's bloodstream,
Mhm.
there are a number of changes that happen to a woman's body at a genetic level.
Mhm.
So it is not just one or two, around 300 odd genes are some are upregulated, some are downregulated. Basically, her biology starts to change and it starts to become in line with that gotra. Okay? So that's why gotra changes after vivaha for a woman. And it is not just the Vaidika Vivaha as in the ritual, sexual intercourse obviously must happen. So the way they confirm it in the Shastras is if she has had a child. That is the decent way of putting it. Okay. So after Vaidik, the Vivaha rituals provide a certain base, a foundation vibrationally, so that the woman's body can easily go through those genetic changes that will occur to her after
Mhm.
Vivaha. Hmm? So that's what Gotra is. Now, if you understood this, we will understand why women were not encouraged to have multiple husbands, but men could have many wives. Because the Y chromosome is a master regulator. Once it enters the female bloodstream, it rejects all the other chromosomes and her biology has changed. Imagine 300 odd genes going through change every time the woman's Gotra changes. So she will have severe biological problems, genetic issues.
Mhm.
So in modern science, there is a study which I've quoted in the book that where the male partner was was infertile, and they tried to use donor sperms. It
Mhm.
took a long time for the female body to accept it because the husband's Y chromosome is sitting there as a master regulator. It rejects all the others.
Mhm.
So women's bodies can't keep shifting genetically like this. It is not good for her. And therefore, even if there were multiple marriages, as in the case of Draupadi, it was to men of the same Gotra. They were all
Mhm.
of the same Gotra. And the practice of Niyoga, which is not allowed in Kali Yuga, Niyoga was if a couple is unable to conceive naturally, then with the husband's permission, she can have She can conceive through another man, preferably the brother, or anyone else who's a Sagotra person, meaning person of the same Gotra. So it does not randomly conceive with whoever you want, the same Gotra, because so that her body doesn't keep going through changes every now and then. So there's nothing to do with patriarchy, it has everything to do with biology.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this last part was very interesting because we tend to ask often why men are allowed many wives, why women are not allowed the same, and so on. And Draupadi is really the exception, because in like you say, there is always a story to do with the previous Janma, which denotes the exceptions. And I like that part as well, where you say that we tend to not look at exceptions as exceptions, and that's inaccurate. And so we have a lot of these examples in the Mahabharata, the Vyadha Gita, for instance, that you take up, that it's an exception. A little bit Purva Janma karma has resulted in this kind of a mismatched varna. All of these together were very interesting for me because, oh, you wasn't there for another. Because they tell us why things are different for men and things are different for women in Hindu thought. And they are not for the reasons that we tend to assume. They are for more subtle reasons. And all in place with this book, I'm say that this might be the final word on Varna. So I recommend this book and hope that everyone reads it, responds to it, and I look forward to the responses others have to this book, and just wish you well, Sinuji.
Thank you so much for having us here. And I would only like to say in the end again,
Talking to us.
reading,
We
please remember that Varna Vidya is Devi's direct knowledge. So even if you don't agree with anything that this
a
person
second.
has written, please do not disagree with
See.
what the reviews have said. So my request to readers is that when you read Varna Vidya, it's better that you have a hard copy of the book because do not underestimate Devi's presence here. This is consecrated again, for lack of a better word. The image here is done as per the Shilpa Shastras. So when we do it like that, the image carries a certain vibration. And the final stage of painting is called Netra Unmelanam, that is opening the eyes. So at the time of opening the eyes, a sankalpa can be held. So the process of opening the eyes was done by my guru, who is a Jivan Mukta. And the sankalpa was that whoever reads this receives the deeper knowledge from Devi. So do not take this lightly. Keep the book, meditate upon her, and then read it. And once you start, make sure you finish it. All those who have finished the book, so many of them have had some or the other experience of Devi. Suddenly they land up in a temple of Rajarajeshwari or Mahatripura Sundari or Lalitambika. She calls. One way or the other, you will have that experience of her. So read this and thank her for sharing, making this knowledge known. And I hope that all those who keep an open mind and surrender to the Divine Mother receive this knowledge. What is written here is very little, but if you connect with her, you can receive much, much more than what is written here. This will just be a start for you. The Shastras will come alive. Everything you read in Manusmriti will become known to you. The Divine Mother herself will make it known to you. So just surrender the mind and let her take over. The rest will follow.
Thank you, Sinuji. Amazing to have had you here today. Thank you. Thank you.